Hello my lovelies, welcome back to my channel and welcome back to Midweek Mysteries. My name is Sally and what I do here is I talk about mysteries and I talk about disappearances of people. This is my new series and it's been going approximately 1 week now. I really hope you enjoyed last week's video on Maura Murray and I thought I would continue this series on and talk about another disappearance that I hold really close to my heart. If you enjoy this, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and hit that bell notification. I would really appreciate it. It will let you know when I upload videos. I upload every Sunday with my Slaughter Sunday series and every midweek when I do my Midweek Mysteries. So please, please, please just hit that little button for me. I'd really appreciate it. As I already said, last week we spoke about Maura Murray. That was insane. I had some really good feedback on it, so I thought I'd carry it on. And this week we're actually going to talk about a case of a young lady called Rebecca Coriam who actually went missing on a Disney cruise. This case has been covered quite a lot, but there's still no answers on where Rebecca is, and that is really frustrating for everybody and her family. And Disney are very tight-lipped about this. They do not want to talk about this and they don't want you to talk about this. So I thought I'd do a video on it. I don't care if it pisses them off. We want to know what happened to Rebecca. So let's just get into it, shall we? Rebecca Coriam was born on the 11th of March in 1987 and she was born in Chester, England. Chester is known as a cathedral city and it's got beautiful aquaculture, it's got beautiful buildings, one of them of which obviously being a beautiful cathedral, and it's set on the border of Wales and it's quite a big place. It's got an approximate population of about 79,000, so that's quite a few people. And it is just a beautiful place to go, it's a beautiful place to visit and it's a beautiful place to live. I have been there myself and I actually love the old cobbled roads and things like that you can find in Chester. It's just a really nice place to be. And Rebecca was raised here by both her parents, Mike and Anne-Marie. She also had an older sister and two younger foster brothers that her parents had obviously fostered. She was an outgoing, chatty, bubbly person. She was wonderful to be around and she had a smile that lit up 1,000 rooms according to her family. And you could just see on photos, she just has this huge smile that just draws you in and you just want to go and speak to her. You want to be her friend. In her youth, she actually worked at Chester Zoo, which is a place where a lot of her family members work. And she'd also worked at the Doubletree by Hilton with her sister before she joined the British Army Cadets, and she actually worked for them too. She organised events with them and just did some outdoor activities with them as she got older. She attended Plymouth University where she studied sports science. She also attended Liverpool University at one point and she actually studied youth studies, which would become very important for her future job. Just like hundreds of other people, Rebecca had become aware of a position that was available on one of the Disney cruise ships and she had decided to go for it. So she went for an interview in London. She was her wonderful, chatty, positive, fantastic self and they very quickly offered her the job. She then went on and did some of her training in the Disneyland theme parks in Florida before she set off on a cruise around the Bahamas to finish off her training. She then returned home for a few weeks where she spent time with her family and saw her grandparents before she headed off on her first tour on the ship that would become her home for a few weeks, which was the Disney ship Wonder. By this time Rebecca was 24 years old and on the 7th of February 2007 Rebecca took her first voyage on the Disney cruise Wonder. She really enjoyed this job and her job was to be a youth worker, so she would work in the children's clubs and do activities with the children and just have a really good time, and she seemed to really enjoy this job. It was like a job that was made for her. It was her job from heaven, really. The ship visited all the ports in Mexico and made its way through the Panama Canal. Unfortunately, during this time, Rebecca got the devastating news that her grandfather had sadly passed away. So she decided to take a couple of weeks off, return back home to Chester and attend his funeral and spend some time with her family. But sadly, this would be the last time that her family ever saw her again in person. On the 21st of March 2011, Rebecca re-embarked on her journey on the cruise ship Wonder. They set off from LA that day and she had regular contact with her friends and family at home. In fact, on that day, she sent a Facebook message to her mum saying that she loved her and she would speak to her tomorrow. However, she would never get the chance to speak to her mother again, because just 12 hours later, Rebecca was reported missing. Her mother had become slightly concerned because after 12 hours, she still hadn't heard from her daughter. And Rebecca, when she said she was going to call home, she would call home. She'd never missed a call, and she'd never missed an opportunity to be in contact with her family. So her mother was getting a little bit concerned, but then she kept thinking to herself, well, maybe she got busy at work. I mean, this is her job. So initially, they didn't really panic too much. However, on the 22nd of March at 9 a.m, Rebecca did not show up for her morning shift as a youth worker, and her colleagues began to get worried. They searched the entirety of the ship, they searched her room, they searched all the decks, and Rebecca didn't even respond to messages that were sent over the intercom or by pages that were sent to her. So they began to get really concerned, and eventually they had to report her missing. At this point, they also decided to check the CCTV footage on board the ship. Now, we have seen this footage, and it's eerie because it's the last time we actually ever see her in person. I'll quickly explain it to you in case I can't find the clip. Now, what we see is Rebecca is on the phone to somebody, and she seems to be quite distraught. She's very upset, and somebody actually comes to her, a man enters the screen and comes to her and says, "Are you okay?" And you see her physically word the words, "Yeah, fine." He then gives her a quick tap, and then he exits the shot. She continues with her phone call for another couple of seconds, and then she hangs up her phone. At that moment, she pushes her hair back and tucks it behind her ears, and then puts her hands in her back pockets and exits off the screen. Rebecca is never ever seen again. Her family have seen this footage, and they say that this is normal footage. It's Rebecca's mannerisms, but the one thing that they were concerned about is A, the fact that she was very, very distraught, and B, she didn't seem to be wearing her own clothing. In fact, in the CCTV footage, you can see that she's not wearing her own clothing. The clothing is extremely baggy, the trousers are too long. I mean, if we weren't her family, we may not have picked up on this. We may have thought she was just wearing pyjamas or something. But now that they've mentioned it, you can clearly see that these clothes are far too big for her and do not look like they belong to her at all. One of the things that actually confuses me is that during the time that they were searching for Becca, an unverified report came through that somebody had seen Rebecca go overboard at 3 a.m. Now, this would have happened 3 hours before she's even seen on CCTV. So that's really weird. She couldn't have gone overboard at that time if she was seen on CCTV, unless the CCTV had the wrong time on it, but the lighting as such, I wouldn't say that that was early hours in the morning myself. You can have a look at the footage yourself and let me know what you think. But I don't think that that was 3 o'clock in the morning myself, so I don't think that this statement, as you can say, holds much validity. I don't think that this person is either telling the truth, or maybe they just got confused with their times. I don't know. The family were told that Becca was missing, but there isn't really much they can do. When somebody goes missing at sea, it's difficult to find them. Obviously, the captain of the ship did make an SOS call, and the area of the sea that they had travelled was searched. The US Coast Guard and the Mexican Navy went to that location and searched to see if they could find Rebecca, or if they could find anything that would make them believe Rebecca was there. Nothing was actually found. So 3 days later, the Wonder Cruise ended up porting back in LA. Now, this is 3 days after Rebecca goes missing, and this is the first point where any kind of authority can get onto this ship and do a search. A detective from the Royal Barbados Police Force does fly to the scene and does gain entry to the ship. This is after every single member of the public had been taken off the ship, so it's completely empty other than the crew, the captain, those kinds of people. He went on and he spoke to a few people. He did a basic search, couldn't find anything, so concluded that she must have gone overboard. Now, I don't know how this works. He obviously spoke to the captain, and I believe the captain probably told him that they suspected that Becca had gone overboard. But the Barbados Police Force are widely criticised for the fact that they are absolutely shit at their job, basically. They don't do proper investigations, they don't have the training or the ability to be good police officers, and they just did some shoddy work. I mean, you can't interview a few people and say, Okay, mystery solved, she went overboard. That's not how this works. That's not how it's supposed to work. And the FBI or the British police were not allowed to get involved with this because it was out of their jurisdiction. I've heard a lot of people say that the FBI, the American police, or the British police have refused to be involved. That isn't the case. They were not allowed to be involved, simply because the cruise ship and many cruise ships in the world are actually registered at the Bahamas. And the reason that this happens is because in this instance, Bahamas will not charge extra tax. They have different laws. Their laws aren't as strict. Companies can take their entirety of their profits without having to pay taxes to any countries. And lots of cruise ships do this. Whereas if they'd registered the ship in the US, which is where it obviously ported and where it left from and came back to, they would have to pay an amount of tax. I don't know how it would be, how much it would be, but they would have to pay tax. Whereas if they register in Barbados and fly on a different flag, they don't have to do that. But because of this, when people go missing at sea, it becomes incredibly difficult to find them because there are no laws, because there is no proper police force that can look into it. It tends to be the Barbados police. And as I've already said, they are crap. So if your family member goes missing at sea, it is unlikely they are going to be found because the police work is just absolutely shoddy. Disney did end up flying Becca's parents out to LA to meet the boat when it ported in LA. They claimed that when they arrived at the location, they were kept in a car with blacked out windows, and then once all of the passengers had de-embarked from the ship, they were taken in through a secret side entrance to search the ship for themselves. And they were allowed to go into Becca's room, and they did briefly speak to the captain. The captain did offer his condolences, and he told the family that Becca went overboard. I don't really know where he has a right to tell them that. First of all, that's never 100% been proven. There is just speculation that she went overboard. So I don't think the captain should have said anything of that sort. And it really infuriates me that the family had to sit there in secret. It just goes to show that Disney were trying to cover this up as much as they can. And that also became very apparent because when the detective from the Barbados police force went on the ship, he was basically told to be quick because they had people waiting to board the ship so they could carry on to their next destination. And Disney are not going to be the suckers that are going to lose money because some woman disappears. Oh, no, no. No. They want to get all the money they possibly can. And despite the fact that morally they are kind of responsible for this, they don't care. And they just want this to be brushed under the carpet as quickly as possible. And that's became even more clear in the following years. After they went and searched on the ship, they were actually taken to a meeting with Disney executives and the woman that was on the phone to Becca during the CCTV phone call. There isn't much said about this. The Disney executives claim that, again, Becca went overboard, so it was a tragic accident and they're not liable. But the woman that had the phone call with her didn't really say anything that we know of that can say this is definitely what happened to Becca. It's just very strange. So we're going to jump forward now to October 2011, and there is a journalist in the UK named John Ronson. Now, he took it upon himself to book on to the Wonder Cruise and take the exact journey that Rebecca had taken. Also on this cruise were many of the staff members that were there when Becca disappeared. So he decided to go on this 7-day cruise and try and dig out some information, sort of like a secret investigator. He did embark on this journey and he did speak to many crew members. But it's still very mixed. Some crew members are very suspicious of Disney and think that they're holding back information and that there's more security footage that for some reason they're not sharing with anybody, which is interesting because Ronson also noticed that every inch of this cruise ship was covered with security cameras. Now, they're not security cameras that are banging your face so you can see them. Some of them are hidden, but it's very obvious that the whole ship is covered in security cameras other than bathrooms and things. So to assume that they don't have CCTV would be ridiculous. However, were these cameras working? Or were they just some kind of thing that they had to have in order to continue with their company, if that makes sense? I don't know. I don't know why they would hire CCTV unless something really weird happened. like a crew member or even the captain had killed Becca. I don't know why this would be an issue, and I don't think we'll ever know either. None of the people that spoke to Ronson wanted to share their real names, which again I find very interesting. They must be scared of something if they don't want to share their names. Obviously he respected this and he spoke to many people. Ronson also spoke to a bartender, and what he said was very interesting. And he said, quote, "That's not what happened, or at least you know that's the answer I have to give," end quote. That's interesting, because that makes me think that Disney are hiding something and that they've told all the crew members to say that didn't happen, or this didn't happen, or that didn't happen. And it's almost like they're telling them to tell people that Becca went overboard in some kind of freak accident from some kind of rogue wave. It's very strange. I mean, if I was a crew member and then someone came up to me and said, "Look, we've had a woman disappear. This place is covered in CCTV. We know what happened, but we're not telling you. But you have to say that she went over because of a wave." I wouldn't be working for that company anymore. I would leave. I mean, I understand that during that particular time when Becca disappeared, you couldn't exactly just leave. I mean, you couldn't just walk off a boat. But when it ported back in the LA, there would be no fucking chance that I'd be getting back on that ship. And not a fucking chance. So it's interesting to me as to what happened, because I wasn't there. I don't know what's happening behind the scenes. When were they told to say this? Why were they told to say this? What really happened? Most of the crew members told Ronson that they had heard that Becca had gone over the ship on deck 5. Now, this is a picture of deck 5, and it's very unlikely that she went over on deck 5 because the walls were so high. Unless a wave came in and then swept it up and over, I don't know how this would have happened. I don't get it. And also, if that had happened and the wave was that big to take away a person, surely there would be some damage to the actual ship, and there wasn't. There wasn't anything. Also, another crew member said that the day after Becca disappeared, the company left a bunch of flowers on deck 5 in the area that they presume Becca had gone overboard. Again, that's weird. Because why would they leave the flowers there? I don't know. It's all very suspicious. Ronson did come up with one theory though. There is a deck on the ship, which is deck 4, and this is like a running track that goes right around the ship, and Becca did go running very often, and Ronson did say it could be feasible that she had slipped and fallen from this part of the ship, as there were very low railings and you could literally just go over, and it would be quite easy, especially if you slipped because it was wet or whatever. He said this is feasible, but anybody he spoke to about this theory said that there was no chance this could have happened because that area again has many CCTV cameras, so it would have been caught on camera, and it would be much easier for Disney to release the footage of her on deck 4 and say, this is what happened, she fell from deck 4, end of conversation, everything's closed, I'm really sorry for your loss. But instead they're keeping it a secret. So I'm led to believe that there is no footage of her on deck 4 because she wasn't there. But it is a good theory. So speaking of theories, we'll quickly jump into the theories of this. First is obviously that there was a rough wave that came and swept Becca away while she was on any of the decks, really. Deck 5 is obviously primarily the one they are saying. But this is really hard for the family to believe because the family never received a final report from the Bahamas police, despite being promised that they would. However, the British police did receive a copy of this final report, but that for some reason they are refusing to share it with the family. There is a theory that they were asked to not show it to the family, so they're not showing it to the family. And there's another theory that says that it's got too much personal information in, so the family aren't allowed to see it, which again doesn't make sense to me. Also, the family did receive Rebecca's personal items from the ship. They took a lot of it with them when they actually went to the ship themselves. And in this stuff that was given to them by the police was a pair of flip-flops. This seemed to prove to Disney and some other people that Becca had gone overboard because her flip-flops were found on deck 5 next to the wall, and it would be easy for the wave to knock them off. However, on much investigation, you can see that these flip-flops are A, a size too small, and B, have a different name and room number on the side of them. So they're obviously not Becca's. So why were they there? And why were they given to her family? Strange. And on top of that, a private investigator that was hired by the Coriams did an investigation into the weather on the night that Becca apparently went overboard, and he discovered that the sea was completely calm that night. There is no physical reason or evidence that Becca could have gone overboard at all. I personally myself don't even believe it. I don't think she could have gone overboard, especially not on deck 5, because of how high the wall was. It just doesn't seem physically possible for that to have happened. Another theory is an issue with her love life. Becca actually had a girlfriend, and 2 years after she disappeared, a woman called Tracy came forward and contacted Becca's father. First of all, why wait 2 fucking years? Very suspicious. Anyway, she claimed that she had worked on board with Becca at this time, and that her and Becca had started a relationship. Also at this time, Tracy was seeing another man who is unnamed, and she was very honest with Becca about this, and she told Becca that she was seeing this other man and floated the idea that they had a threesome. She claims on the night that Becca disappeared, they were all in the bar together having a drink, they went back and had a threesome, and then they got into a little bit of an argument, whereas Becca said that she couldn't do this anymore. She wanted Tracy all to herself. She didn't like the thought of sharing her with another person, especially a man, and she wanted to get off this boat immediately, and if she wanted to get off the boat, she would simply jump off. And this is what Tracy suggests happen. She thinks that after this argument, Becca went and made a phone call and spoke to somebody about the idea of jumping off the side of the boat, and then after this phone call she went to deck 5, climbed over the wall and jumped into the sea to commit suicide. Now, I have many problems with this theory. One is that there is nothing to indicate to Becca's friends or family that Becca was suffering with her mental health in any which way or form. They didn't think that Becca was the type to commit suicide because she was such a happy and bubbly girl. And they're not saying that she wasn't feeling upset or down on this day. You can clearly see on the CCTV footage that she was struggling with something. But they don't think that she would commit suicide and take her own life. Because she loved her family and she loved her friends dearly, and she wouldn't put them through this. And also, in the personal belongings they found, Becca had actually managed to obtain passes for Disneyland Paris, and she planned on taking her mother and sister in the next few months. So why would she make plans with her mother and sister to go on this amazing trip to Disneyland and then kill herself? Her family couldn't make sense of this. So I think the suicide and the love triangle theory do not add up. I definitely don't think she committed suicide. There is not enough evidence for me to say that she committed suicide. I just don't think she did that. There's also the theory that she was sexually assaulted and then murdered. Now this one is deep, okay? There are many theories within this. So obviously in the CCTV footage, you can see that she's wearing different people's clothes, possibly men's clothing. She's very, very upset, and that could lead people to think that she was either about to be sexually assaulted and managed to get away, or she'd been sexually assaulted and chucked on some clothes and got away and made a phone call, and then this person, not wanting Becca to go to the police or tell somebody, simply killed her and then threw her over into the sea. This could be plausible. It could be plausible. And this also goes into the theory of the relationship with Tracy and this man. Is it possible that they did have a threesome that night, or they took advantage of Becca after she'd had a few drinks, and she said that she was going to tell people what happened, or threatened them in some way, or just said, I'm going to the police, which is perfectly within her right, and they decided to kill her, and then they chucked her into the sea. That's also very plausible. One, because Tracy waited 2 whole years to come forward with this information. 2, it would explain why Becca was upset on the CCTV and why she was wearing men's clothing. And 3, it just fits. For me, personally, in my opinion, I'm not accusing anybody of anything, but for me, it's the one that fits the best. that something happened within this love triangle and Becca ended up dead. It could have been an accident. They could have attacked her and it was an accident, but they had to get rid of her body. But I certainly 85% would sit here and bet money on the fact that it had something to do with Tracy and this man, or this man on his own, or Tracy on her own. I 100% think that there's foul play involved, and I 100% think Tracy knows more than she's saying. But that is, again, just my opinion. Don't fight me. It's my opinion. Maybe one day we will find out that I'm wrong, or maybe we will find out one day that I'm right. But that's just what I think. The final theory is that she's actually alive, and she's just in hiding for whatever reason. This theory doesn't make sense in the fact that she's very close to her family, and she's had no contact with them. But the thing that makes people think this is that her social media has been used since her disappearance, that we know of. We definitely know that her password was changed at some point because her uncle tried to get onto her Facebook and couldn't get on despite the fact that they knew her password. So the password had been changed. So is Becca done that herself, or is she with somebody that has made her do that? Also, there was actual usage on her credit card. Somebody had used her credit card after her disappearance. But there's never been any development on this. We don't know who this was, we don't know where it was, we don't know why, we don't know what they bought. We don't know if it was actually Becca or not. But again, that does fit into the theory that it was something to do with Tracy. Because Tracy would have had her personal belongings if there was some kind of sexual activity or sexual assault. Her personal belongings would still be in the place that it happened. So maybe they stole her credit card and used it afterwards. Who knows? Just saying. Also, somebody did come forward and contacted Becca's father not long after her disappearance and said that she is 85% sure that she's seen Becca in Venice with a dark-haired man. But again, nothing has ever come of this. Her parents got their hopes up, hoping it was Becca, because that would be wonderful, that she was still alive. They would obviously be upset as to why she hasn't tried to contact them, but at least she's alive. However, they soon quickly realised that this probably wasn't true, because how would she get there? How would you go from a boat in the middle of the Mexican Sea all the way to Venice? Would she swim? There was never any reports of any kind of motorboats, and none of the boats from the ship were taken, like the dinghies or anything like that. Also, she didn't have her passport on her. Her passport was returned to her parents when her belongings were returned. So it's very unlikely that this is even true, and again, there's not been much follow-up anyway, and we don't know whether that was her or not, but her parents are pretty confident that it wasn't, so that's good enough for me. This case has obviously been highly criticised, rightly so. The police in the Bahamas are useless, and their handling of this case was ridiculous, and I am fuming for the parents. I think it's absolutely disgusting the way this has all been done. They have been kept hidden from important information so much, it's actually disgusting. This is their child. This is somebody's sister. This is somebody's grandchild. This is somebody's friend. And all of the people that are entitled to know what happened to Becca have been kept completely in the dark by the police. And I think it's disgusting. And I think they should be ashamed of themselves. I think it's absolutely vile. And Disney, I love Disney. I love me a good Disney film. I can watch Moana 100 times a day. But the way they've handled this, again, is disgusting. They've barely given any personal statements about it. They haven't helped the family at all. In fact, all they've cared about is the income that they have lost. In fact, they haven't even lost anything because they never ever tell anybody what happened. After Becca disappeared, they kept it on the down low. People getting off that ship had only heard a few bits from the crew, and the people that got on the ship after Becca's disappearance never even heard of it. They didn't even know until they'd heard it in the news. That to me says that Disney only care about their income and about their revenue, and that's fucking disgusting. I have a lot of respect for Disney, but this case has made me want to boycott it completely. I think the way they've handled it is absolutely disgusting. It's disgusting. A few years ago, the Coriams did file a lawsuit against Disney and the they actually managed to settle out of court. We don't know how much that is. We don't need to know how much that is. But the lawsuit was settled by Disney. They paid a certain amount to the Coriams. But yeah, so that is the case of Rebecca Coriam. Rebecca does have a website, so all you have to type in is Rebecca Coriam and it will come up. If you know anything or have any information about this case, please, please, please do reach out. You can reach out to many people. You can go to mrspersons.org to do a report. You could contact the Coriams themselves on the website they have, or you could contact the Chester Police, the British Police, the Bahamas Police, even the LAPD at a push, and just give any information over. Like I say, if you know anything, please reach out. This case needs to be solved for her family, and we all would like to know where Rebecca is. My thoughts are with her family at this moment. It must be absolutely traumatic not knowing where your daughter is, and I'm so sorry about it, and I hope one day you get the answers that you need. But I'm going to leave that there. Please come back next week for another midweek mystery, and I hope you enjoyed this video as best as you could. Please remember to stay safe out there. If you see anything, report it, and just be careful. Just be careful. Okay? I love you guys. I'll see you in the next one. Have a wonderful day. Bye.
Jet planes in the night sky with you, getting high in the sunrise with you, getting through all the bad times with you. I wasn't missing a thing, no I do. And I wish that I could build a time machine, 'cause time moves on, and now you're gone. Oh, if only I could build a time machine, I'd come and get you. I can't forget you. I miss you, I miss you.